Okay, so um, Charlie remembers a long time ago, we did these, we called them Dubsy chats. Remember that, Charlie?
Mm-hmm.
We tried to bring all the faculty together to talk about the first year writing and reading and kind of like what it was to be a mentor. Uh, that's kind of what I'm imagining we're doing here. So it's, I think it's just an opportunity for us to talk to the students a little bit
Mm-hmm.
and check in on them and see what's going on. If you have any questions, just let me know. But I thought it would be helpful if we just spent like 15, 20 minutes or so, just, getting together as a group, trying to do what we do best and talk to the students. So you're free to vamp and talk about whatever you want. But one of the things that I was thinking of is what challenges have you all had as we shift to this new learning environment?
Well, I'll start then. The challenges have all been me learning or getting comfortable with the technology. My students have been fantastic. They've more than risen, but I never used Zoom. I was an early adopter of Moodle, and I have a lot of stuff on Moodle. I've always used Moodle a lot. I thought foolishly that I'd be able to teach using just Moodle. I'd be able to use, the Moodle chat feature and, my stuff's already there. Disaster. So I've had to learn how to make, videos on QuickTime and post them to YouTube, learning to use Zoom, and the classes have gone more smoothly as I've become more comfortable with it. But thank God for Sonia's videos, because otherwise, who knows what would have happened. But if, and God, I hope this doesn't happen, but if we have to do this another time, I think I'll have a much smoother time of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of, that's what I've been thinking about a lot too. And it's related to like my biggest challenge, which is deciding what content needs to be delivered online versus what I would normally deliver in person. And the way that I've thought about it is that if this were an online situation where the students and the professors knew going into it that it was going to be an online semester, the classes would have been set up very differently, right? Like expectations would have been laid out from the beginning about like how to navigate Moodle and how to use discussion boards and what's expected for quizzes and things like that. And so we've been trying to do this all on the fly. So for me, it's been looking at my content and being like, so what do they absolutely need to know for my class and what is just going to stress them out? And so kind of trying to find that balance has been a little bit difficult for me. And then like personally, I think just motivation is hard when it's online. Like, and I think about it and I'm like, yo, I'm getting paid and I still have some motivation issues. Like if I'm struggling to like get myself going on some days, then I know students are struggling as well,
I think another challenge I found is when people are not responding to discussion posts or assignments that you're putting and you're reaching out via email, it's just like a blank void. You're not hearing anything from them. You don't know what they need or what's going on with them. So really trying to engage people who haven't quite gotten engaged with the online class has been difficult.
Yeah, because like in person, you can, grab somebody after class and make eye contact and know that your message is being delivered. And now, like you said, it's just like the void. Like you send out your emails, you put your discussion post up, you put your announcements up, and you don't know if students are seeing it. You don't know if and a lot of that's trusting that they're doing their part, but they're also overwhelmed. I've had several students tell me, like, come to my office hours specifically and be like, between this class and all my other classes, like, I'm struggling. And I think, like, one of the things that I've thought a lot about that kind of relates to that content piece is just like, I don't know that right now we can take our in-person classes the way that they are and just put them online. Like, it's too much work. It's too much work for the students. It's too much work for us. And so, like I said, like, without having that insight from the beginning, there's a lot of pivoting that has to be done. And I feel like with me, I've been kind of easing up a little bit because students are reporting to me that their other classes aren't. And so I'm like, well, I would rather you do a few assignments and understand them than to feel overwhelmed and just put in a bunch of work that's not very good or that you're not learning from. So yeah, I think kind of like on the content side of stuff, trying to balance, my struggle with that, with knowing that not everybody is thinking the same way about how to trim their content or change what they're asking of students.
So then another quick question. How much time did you spend with the shift over to either whatever you're using?
I think it's a lot more time. I feel like I'm having a problem putting boundaries on my work because my work is at home and it seems like there's always something that I need to either be reading that they're putting up or that I need to be preparing so that they have something worthwhile to do. So I think kind of managing my own time in terms of doing the online, and I can imagine they're struggling with the same thing.
Yeah, I would say, like what Laura was saying, like with the amount of work, I would say it's at least 50% plus more work. Like, I'm doing time and a half at the very least of what I had been doing in person.
I'd concur with my colleagues here. I'm spending a lot more time preparing for, for each day's presentations. I'm like rehearsing. Like I have not done this since I first started teaching high school. I'm like practicing and, how do I look in the camera? Oh God, that's horrible. Let's move it this way. All of that stuff. And so courses that I would normally, a class session that I would normally have spent an hour to an hour and a half prepping for, it's time and a half at least just rehearsing and getting it together. I also, like I said, I spent, and this is on me, I spent a lot of time just learning to use the darn thing. If I'd done the workshops and all of that when they were offered, I might not have had to spend as much time on the trial and error. But like I said, at the time those were being offered, I was convinced I'd be able to do it all via Moodle, chats and forums and OU blogs. And so, yeah, that learning time has to be built in.
Yeah, I was joking, like the first day that we came back, I was like, I haven't like pitted out before a class in like 7 years. Like, I was so nervous before that first like online session. I was like, why am I so sweaty and nervous? I don't it was like that very first class over again.
So we've got a lot of people, a lot of the students are really nervous, anxious. I think we are as well. And they're concerned about their grades. They're concerned about doing a good job. So just like speak from the heart. What do you want to tell the students right now?
I just, go ahead, Kristen.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I just would want I want to tell them, and what I hope I'm conveying to them is I want them to be as successful in this transition as I wanted them to be before. And so, you know, whatever we need to adjust or adjust to, so that I feel like they're getting the learning that I hope they get in other ways. I'm willing to do that. I don't want to see anybody go down as a result of this transition, because it's really not under anybody's control. Really not under anybody's control. And the same way, I hope that they don't expect my teaching to be the same as it was in person. I want to make sure that I don't expect their learning to be the same as when we were in person, because you know, they're home with 15 cousins running around in some cases and worried about health and all of that. So I just want them to know that I want them to be successful.
Yeah, and along with that, with being successful, I also I want them to be communicative, and I think that's something that we've touched on also. You know, we're worried that our emails are just going out into the void and never being seen. I want my students to feel comfortable sending me an email. I don't care what time. If I'm sleeping, I don't get my email, so I'll see it when I wake up. You know, send me an email at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's fine, as long as I'm getting some indication of what's going on. Because there's been a couple instances where I've tried to reach out and then I hear back a little while later, and then they're like, oh, you know, I didn't want to bother you, or I know that you're busy. And I'm like, yeah, but I need you to talk to me as well. So I think, you know, allowing the students to feel comfortable, you know, telling you if they're struggling, and that way you can help. A few of my students have, you know, just emailed me randomly on a day that I don't have scheduled virtual office hours to be like, can you meet? And I'll meet with them. You know, so I think, and that's what I try to tell the students that I've spoken with about it too, is I know I'm not the only professor that feels this way. So make sure you're talking to your professors. If you really don't think you're going to be able to make that deadline because your internet is shoddy, or you're babysitting, or you're teaching 3rd grade math right now, send them an email and let them know. You know, we're in a weird situation too. Yeah, and I think I just really want the students, because I know that a lot of them do feel that pressure, like Laura was mentioning, to be successful, but they need to be kind to themselves too. You know, schedule breaks, meditate. Maybe that's helped me a lot. I have a racing mind. I have clinical anxiety, so that kind of stuff has really helped me as I've transitioned, because you know it's not easy, and if you're carrying your over perfectionist tendencies from IRL into online, it resonates even louder.
I appreciate you saying that about the communication, because I've been just asking for feedback. Give me what's not working, what's working, what should we do more, feedback. I reached out to them during the spring break, and I put a video on YouTube and sent them the link. And I said, look, from this point on, nothing is going to be normal. And so we had this syllabus that I spent so much time thinking out, and we're just, throw that away. Stay with me. If you stick with me and keep punching, there's no way in hell I'm going to let you fail. So if you have anxiety about your grade, don't. But tell me what you need. Tell me what you're not getting. I learned something pretty big. One of my students is in Karachi, Pakistan, which is under a curfew from 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. and is, by the way, 12 hours ahead of us. So when my little dog and pony show kicks off at 1:30 in the afternoon, he was getting up at 1:30 in the morning. Okay, we're not doing that anymore. We're going to record them. I'm going to send you the link. I'm going to miss your participation in the class discussions, but it's madness for you to have to be up from 1:30 to 3 in the morning. Okay.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have known this if I hadn't been soliciting the feedback, you know, tell me. I don't think we can say that enough. And, but you know, we have to walk the walk too, right? So if we want them to do this, for this to have any meaning, you know, we have to follow through on that. So if we say, I'm going to do whatever I can, if somebody presents a reasonable accommodation they'd like to have, well, you know, we have to make it happen, right? No, empty promises don't do us any good. So that's my nickel's worth on that.
I agree. Compassion goes really far. I think the students sometimes forget the whole world is in this right now. And it's always important to remember that most of their faculty responds really well to engagement, right? If they are willing to kind of meet the communication as a two-way street, we usually can get a lot done. So anything else that you'd like to say? I'm imagining that we'll do a few more of these over the semester, or what's left of it. And, you know, sometimes we're able to talk to the students, and sometimes we're talking to the students we had last semester through these kind of conversations. So anything else you want to say?
Yeah, like I think one of the things that's really helpful for students to remember is scheduling their day out is really helpful. Especially like Laurel, you were mentioning, like it's hard to turn off, because it is, right? So if you're not scheduling your day out, then next thing you know, it's 9 p.m. and you have dinner in one hand and you're grading or working on something in the other hand, and it's like, whoa, this can't bleed together this much. So like one of the things I've been trying to tell my students to do is just schedule your day in blocks like you would when you were in school as much as possible. Like obviously, you know, what's going on at home might influence that ability, but you know, if you say, you know, I normally meet for this class on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from this time, then try to schedule a block of time that's just that class, and you just get the stuff for that. You check the Moodle during that time, like at the very least, check Moodle during that time that you schedule out for that class, and schedule breaks. Like, I think that expecting students to work, you know, in 8-hour chunks, like no one's expecting that, but students are doing it, right? Like, and I don't know if it's because they're like not, you know, not able to prioritize or what's happening, but I think being really organized is really helpful for the students to keep in mind. And again, like, just like be kind to yourself. If you miss your appointment to like go to your class, then make up for it later. Like, but just, you know, this happened and it's going to be better next time, or I'm going to wake up a little earlier next time, or go to bed a little earlier next time, like whatever needs to happen. But I think just being like carrying that compassion inward too is really important.
I was just going to say too that normally, and Gil might know this about me, students who come to class who haven't done the reading or aren't prepared can expect, when that becomes obvious to me, a response. I'm encouraging my students, you know, come to the Zoom class even if you haven't done everything. It's as important to me that you're there and I can see you in that little Brady Bunch Hollywood Squares configuration. It's as important to me to see you there than to hear you say something brilliant in class, although I like hearing brilliant things in class. What did the guy say is in 90% of success is showing up? Show up, guys. Show up. This won't last forever.